All right, fab. So to start with, just a big thank you for joining us this evening, or whatever time it is in whatever part of the world you're joining us from. So hello and welcome. This is the launch of Glacier Gifts, which is an ebook that celebrates a creative writing adventure that we've been having in the Peruvian Andes. So we really appreciate you taking the time to join us. Some of you joining might work on glaciers yourselves and might have some insight into some of the topics, and others might never have really thought about this before. So wherever you're coming from, whatever your background, very welcome here this evening. So we really hope you enjoy learning about our creative collaboration. We've certainly had a lot of fun taking part in it. So we're going to start off this evening hearing from 4 of us who have contributed to Glacier Gifts. Actually, there are 7 of us who have contributed to the book in total. 3 of our colleagues aren't with us tonight to give readings, but I would also just say thank you to Claudia Grados Bueno, Evelyn Hoyos and Kelly Hurtado, who have also contributed to the pieces in this book. So thank you very much to them. So we'll start off with a short introduction to our collaboration and also to the region and some of the research that's kind of inspired the works in this book. And then after that, we're going to have a selection of readings of some of the creative writing pieces from the book that we've kind of collectively brought together. And at the end of the event will also be providing you with a link so that you can go and explore the book as much as you like. It's free, you can download that, you can also view it online. So we'll pass that on after we've done some readings. There's also a Q&A function for this event. So if you have any questions that pop into your head as we go through either the introductions or the readings themselves, please feel free to add your question via the Q&A, and then towards the end we'll have some time to answer questions if there are any. So please use this space. You can also upvote questions, so if someone else has asked a question that you would like to have asked yourself, you can kind of vote for that and say yes please, ask that one. So yeah, we'll take some time to look at that later. All right, so moving on. So I am Carolyn Clayson. I'm an associate professor in the School of Geography, Earth and Environmental Sciences at the University of Plymouth. And I'm a glaciologist. That means I'm interested in researching glaciers. I'm particularly interested in trying to understand how they melt in response to the warming climate, both in the past and also now and into the future. And I'm interested in how that water then moves through the catchments that glaciers sit within. And what that means for the people and for the environment downstream of glaciers that are reliant on that meltwater. So Glacier Gifts, or Regalos Glaciares in Spanish, is a project that combines our knowledge of the science of glaciers with art to explore through creative writing, some watercolor painting and personal photography from the team, the impacts of glacier retreat in the Peruvian Andes. It's a creative output that links to the Sigma Peru project, which is a research project that looks at the water, food and energy security impacts of climate change for the mountain glaciers in this region of Peru. And that involves a collaboration between researchers in the UK and in Peru, and also between the physical and the social sciences. And we hope through our project to work towards trying to identify what the challenges are facing the region in light of glacier change, and to contribute to developing strategies to improve water security as we adapt to the changing environment. The Glacier Gifts project was conceived when we met with author and playwright Diane Samuels, who's joining us tonight. Actually, back in December 2020, we first met Diane as part of a creative collaboration event that was hosted by the University of Plymouth. And our collaboration has developed really organically over the last 15 months into the product that we're going to talk to you about tonight. Contributors to this include obviously researchers from the UK and Diane, but also our colleagues in Peru, which have been fantastic to have on board. And that allows us to kind of explore our research, but also lived experience as well with having those collaborators in Peru on board. So Diane will talk to you shortly a little bit about that creative process and our collaboration a little bit more. So this project has really allowed us to make emotional connections and imaginative journeys from both a research perspective and that lived experience perspective. And that allowed us to celebrate the value of glaciers and the water that they provide for people in the region, but not just for the communities in the Peruvian Andes, but really to all of us and how important glaciers are worldwide. So that's a little bit of background to this project. And I'm going to pass over to Sally now to tell you a bit more about glacier change in Peru.
Thanks, Caroline. Good evening, everyone. So thanks for joining us this evening. I'm Sally Rangecroft, and I'm a lecturer now based at the University of Exeter, but I was a researcher at Plymouth working on the Sigma Peru project with Caroline. I just want to give you a very short background on glaciers and glacier retreat this evening and why it's such an important topic to discuss, some of the implications of glacier retreat, especially for Peru. So a glacier is a mass of ice that moves slowly over land. Glaciers are found in mountain regions all over the world, in places like the European Alps, in the Asian Himalaya, but also all along South American Andes mountain range. These mountain glaciers provide critical water supplies to millions of people living in South America in places such as Peru. They act as buffers to Peruvian water supplies, slowly releasing meltwater throughout the year. This is especially important during the dry season when there is very little rain. And this is about 6 months of every year in the Peruvian Andes. This meltwater from the glacier is important for drinking and domestic water. It's also important for small scale and large scale agriculture, both crops and animals, and also for hydroelectric power production. It's important for those living locally, but also to those living much further away downstream. It is not only the amount of water coming from the glaciers that is important, but also the quality of the water, as you need to be able to use it, or you have to have the ability to treat it and clean it. And this is an idea we explore a bit in our writings, as it's quite central to our scientific research. Sadly, with ongoing climate change, increasing average temperatures and changing precipitation patterns, glaciers across the world are retreating. They're reducing in size. So the glaciers in our study region, which is the Cordillera Blanca, have decreased in size by 1/3 since the 1970s due to climate change, and are expected to keep getting smaller and smaller. It is thought that many glaciers in this region will disappear in the next few decades. With glaciers being such important water sources in the Andes, Peru is at the heart of a water security problem, as glaciers in the region are rapidly retreating and the impacts are being felt already today and will continue to be felt for generations to come.
Okay, hello everyone. Greetings from Peru. I'm Rosa Maria Dextre. I'm an environmental engineer, graduated from the University of Huaraz, Santiago Antunes de Mayolo. And I also have a master's degree in natural resources governance from the University of Heidelberg. And my master thesis work was carried out through the Sigma project. So I've been working with this team since that in several studies within the Santa River Basin, a place that is also that has also been my home since I was a kid, because I was also born there. So the whole Cordillera Blanca, which is the name we use to describe the different villages and cities that are located on the slopes of the glaciers and mountains in the upper Santa Basin, has been my home, but also a place where my roots are found, and where I was inspired to rethink science from a systemic perspective. So this book, Glacier Gifts, It's also a book to remember that relationship between the people and the mountains. To remember that these mountain areas are home not only of a broad biodiversity, but also of people. To remember that we are highly dependent on services that mountain provide us with. To remember that the hydrological cycle in mountain regions flows both social and hydrological forces. To remember that the society in the Andes shapes and is shaped by the water of the mountains, both materially and discursively. That people and mountains are connected experimentally, culturally, metaphorically, on a personal level, as well as in society, as you can see in these pictures that we have selected, especially for you. So, thank you.
Well, thank you, Rosemarie. I'm Diane Samuels. I'm an author and writer, and I also facilitate creative writing. I have done for many, many, many years. And when Sally and I met at this networking event, it was like a speed dating thing, and we were thrown into chat rooms. And it was the first chat room, wasn't it, Sally, that we landed in, and we started talking about mountains, and we both got very excited because we were both into mountains. I think I'd just done some writing, and it had found its way to a mountain. And from there I met Caroline, and we started just playing around. The approach that I have and I wanted to bring to, I suppose, to the research and the materials and the expertise of the research of the scientists I was working with is to be playful and to not mind getting things wrong, and to open up that people can be a bit scared of the blank page, and to encourage them to just see what comes. And as Caroline said, it was very organic. We just began to play, and you can see on the screen here that in, I think, one of our early sessions, what we do is we just throw out loads of words, and whatever words were, and not only words connected with their research, I'd say bring along an image or some aspect of your research and share it, and then we'll start to see what words come out of it, and then we'll mess with the words. And then we would also throw in random words that, like you can see on the list there, we've got balloon and giraffe, which don't obviously fabric, that don't necessarily, alongside words like polluted and subsurface, have much to do with glaciers. So we just had fun, and fingerprints, and these words just came from nowhere. And so then we played, we did haikus, we just created just streams of consciousness. And then after a couple of sessions, Sally and Caroline said, well, how about we do a session, because Zoom allows this, with colleagues in Peru. So that's when I met Rosemaria and Claudia and Evelyn and Kelly. And my Spanish isn't really anything. And Kelly and Evelyn had probably a similar amount, probably more English than I have Spanish, but so we relied on Rosemarie and Claudia and the bits that Caroline and Sally know to kind of run a creative writing session in English with Spanish, and they wrote in Spanish and English. And so we allowed this to be part of the fabric of the book. And so everything that's in the book kind of grew out of our explorations of everyone bringing along some research, and then us playing with it and free writing from it. And there's a bit at the back of our booklet which gives you a little taste of these creative explorations in a kind of messier, playful kind of form. And then out of these pieces came, and some of them were very emotionally charged, I'd say. There is this feeling of loss, but also of care. It's this bringing the emotions, and it was brilliant having the Peruvians there, because this is their home, and as Rosemarie was saying, and their perspective and their insights are in the booklet too, as well as these more outside eyes from Caroline and Sally, who visited, and I've never been there. So I've only been there, I was given a Google Maps journey. So I've learned about it from them. So we're all coming from different places. And it was just a joy to work on it. And I've learned a huge amount. And I hope that the booklet's free, that this kind of opening, sharing, exploring, curious, playful way of looking at things will touch the people who read it, you, and hopefully we hope you'll pass it on to as many people as you like, so that people can dip in and have a look at what and find out a bit more about this. So that's kind of basically what we've created here, which we're excited to share, and we've honed it and worked on it and brought in a designer who's helped put it together in, I think, visually very exciting way. Caroline's done some fantastic watercolors. All the photos pretty much, apart from a couple, are taken by people in the team. So it's very much a homegrown piece of work. And I hope it speaks to people in that way, that it's very authentic, I think. And, you know, we've asked questions and we're opening up something, as we're not giving answers, we're opening up something and sharing something. And I think it's from the heart as well as from experience in the mind. So yeah, I think we should get reading now. So these are our readings. And one of the first questions I asked was, where do glaciers come from? I asked the team, and Sally brought in this brilliant piece about snowflakes and how glaciers start with snowflakes. So we thought we'd share the first piece with you in the booklet, called It Starts with a Snowflake.
Empieza con un copo de nieve. Antes del fuego y las luces en la tierra, antes de las ciudades donde no llueve, antes de la selva donde no nieva, noche, solo noche, y todas las estrellas en el firmamento. Before fires and lights on earth, before the city where it doesn't rain, the jungle where it doesn't snow, night, full night, and all the stars in the firmament. It's called, it has to be called, an ancient cold night, and we know in this ancient cold night that earth is in space, a blue ball turning, but we can see the blue ball, for we are on it. What we can see in our distant memories of being here before we were here, in our all-knowing heart, is each snowflake falling from the sky, invisible yet like a seed of something enormous.
One small, unique, fluffy crystal that falls from the sky at the right moment. We are older, we are happier, feeling the snowflake in our thoughts, sensing its different colors, its frozen power. We manage to fall beside it. A snowflake seed, many snowflake seeds, falling like stars onto elevated earth that reaches up to catch each one. And here the snowflake lands. Here the snowflakes gather. You wonder how snow so soft can become hard and seem indestructible. Does the snowflake know what it is becoming? Facing wind to crystallize, compact, come together, many into one.
Something so delicate and sugar-like that melts on the tongue, or vanished before it can settle and make its mark on the future. The unlucky ones, despite their unique shape, might get a chance to fall again somewhere else, and perhaps they might stick, might survive the year, to be together before being compressed, squeezing out all the air, breathless, into glacial fern, not unlike intricate frozen ferns on a windscreen, before they are trapped in time.
And hundreds of years later, something much bigger forms, a significant mass of ice that ebbs and flows as it breathes in and out each year, accumulating, consolidating, solidifying. Beautiful beast of nature, worshipped by most, yet underappreciated by some, a giant river of snowflakes. Who could know that one delicate frozen crystal could become a water tower in the mountains, looming over the towns and cities, lifeline for so many? And this is how it begins.
It began.
Only one snowflake without any damage.
Without problems, without flaws.
Okay, so that was a group piece, and now it is my reading. So this is a piece that I wrote. It's okay, don't worry. This is a piece based on our research about glaciers and some of the secrets they may hold. So it is called Secrets of Ice. What stories I have to tell, but do you want to hear them? I am ice, locked up for millennia high upon mountain sides. At first glance, I appear clean, sparkling, blue, white, transparent, and pristine. But on closer inspection, I am a time travel capsule, a glimpse into the past, a record of what has been, an indication of what I am giving to those living below, relying upon me. I can tell you about much warmer and colder times, as well as wetter and drier years, but would you want to hear it? Tales of forest fires close to my heart, trapping the black carbon tears of the Amazon when the winds blow my way. The bad taste left behind by the increasing cars and industry, swallowing and trapping emissions for the future, ever accumulating. Nuclear accidents and deliberate weapon testing. I hold the radioactive particles to show the extent of their reach. Chemicals used to kill pests, polluting the water that I release every day, every year. I can tell you about the people who have walked and climbed on me, leaving microplastic souvenirs, many fibers. Toxic heavy metals that found their way to me, naturally or through human action. But would you want to hear it? These stories I hold, constantly quietly shared through my melting. I don't think you'd want to hear these secrets.
Thank you, Sally. So this next piece is about a concept called Pachamama, which is really important in Peru. It essentially means Mother Earth. Pachamama, Mother Earth, ice and sea and sky and rock, Andean heights and cool Juarez nights in a dream of oxygen-stifled breathing. Pachamama, Mother Earth, red streams flow from metallic mountains and down through the green below, making pure, life-giving water. Pachamama, Mother Earth, multicolored fabric and music and food and lights and huascaran looming above. Pachamama, Mother Earth, blue-green, silver shrinking and twinkling in the sun, turquoise pools growing below.
Thanks, Caroline. So we've got another group reading for this piece, as it's a group piece. I was the one who brought the kind of inspiration for this one. It was a film trailer to one of our sessions, and it's a really inspiring, beautiful film that I recommend that you go and watch the trailer or the film itself. And the link is in the book as well for it. But it's about a group of Bolivian women who decided to climb a mountain for the first time. And they were climbing in their traditional clothing, colourful skirts and bowler hats. And they found their love for mountaineering, and it's just a really beautiful film. And we were able to watch the trailer, and that inspired our writing. And then Diane was able to mould all of our different ideas together into this group piece, which we will read now for you. So it's titled Cholita Skirts and Ice Picks.
My children think I'm a little nuts, walking alone in the middle of the night, swimming in the cold water of the mountain lake before I cannot do it anymore. In their eyes, I am not supposed to enjoy these things. I'm supposed to stay home taking care of them.
When it started, we were going up there as cooks, but we always wanted to get to the top. Everyone laughed at us. The idea that women could climb a mountain, use ice picks, be exposed to the cold. But we showed them our spirits high, our colorful cholita skirts, pink, yellow, red, blue, with winter walking boots and shiny brooches.
Loving mothers, wives, friends, we leave it all behind when we strap on those crampons and make our way up to the peak. Breathe in the fresh air. We see so many blue skies, find ourselves anew as we walk on ice at one with the beauty. It is often believed that only young and athletic men are capable of this feat, but the power of women in the mountains is surprising and encouraging. Illness is the only thing that can stop us, but being in the mountains also heals us, heals the decades, centuries where the ice ceiling remained frozen.
We must always repeat in our heads that age and gender are not an impediment. We cooks, free as dolphins swimming wide ocean waves, pink hearts racing, pulsing, steady as we walk, free to trudge, to rope together, to make our footprints in virgin snow, to show the glaciers that we belong here, we nuts cholitos. Do not be afraid to start something new, or that you could fall if you climb a great mountain. Perhaps you too will be able to cure your ills by trying a little adventure, always with the permission and protection of Pachamama.
Great, thank you. And oh gosh, I don't know how to pronounce the name of this festival. There was a festival. Rosemaria, how do you pronounce it? The Culariti Festival? Rosemaria, you know this?
I don't have the name.
Oh, right. Well, there's a festival in the mountains. And this was inspired by, you can see all the people gathered, and do you remember the name of it? Oh, well, it's in the book. You'll find out. I can't.
In Quechua. Sorry.
I can imagine.
It's in Quechua.
Say it again.
In Quechua. It's the original, one of the original language here.
Yeah. And it's an amazing, it looks like an amazing festival. And so we were inspired by looking at photos, and I think some family members of Claudia, I think, had been to it, and she was telling us about it. So I'll read about, it's called Dancing While the Snow Melts. Dancing while the snow melts into the peaks of ecstasy, reaching for the top of the known world. Inside the church, so still the habits of yesteryear. Outside, bright white snow, the dance of bare toes, of shoes, of hats and skirts, sleeping on the side of the world, on the edge of old new ways, until we find ourselves swimming down the valley to the sea. Melting mountain twirling, snow, snow, quick, quick, snow. And in a peak of a glimmer, the shimmer of white peaks, beaded hats, ribbons like rainbows running, gathering red robes. The mountains have seen it all before. Remember the time before the dancing, before the church, before the snowflake tingles. Dancing while the snow melts, we try to bring it back, bring ourselves back. Bring it all back, forwards, forwards, forwards in circles in the skirt of the mountain.
Thank you, Diane. So that brings us to our Q&A, if we have any questions. So I can't see anything in there at the moment, but you are welcome a question in the Q&A. And I think you can also perhaps raise a hand and I can unmute you if you'd rather ask a question verbally. So I'll just give a couple of minutes to see if any questions come up that anyone would like an answer to. And I can also just, well, oh, we've got some in the chat, which is just to let you know as well, Sally has also just put the links to the Glacier Gifts book in the chat, so you can go and access the full book and download that for free. There's also a version that you can flip through online. So if you follow those links, you can find the full thing. So Ursula has asked, what is the heart message of the book? Does anyone want to have a go at answering that question?
Well, from what I picked up, it's two things. One is celebration of the awesome beauty and power and life-giving force. And also, I'd say it's mourning their loss.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of the others disagree or agree with me.
No, I definitely agree. Yeah, and I guess to expand on that, we found 3 main themes from our writings that enabled us to kind of have 3 different sections to the book. I think the first one was mainly about glaciers and ice, and this idea that it starts with a snowflake. So that's kind of more on the physical science, exploring the world of glaciers and the importance of them. And then the middle section of the book was mainly linked to Pachamama and this kind of spiritual connection to the mountains and to Mother Earth. And the third part of the book is called, I think, Country of Contrasts, because this is another aspect that really came out in quite a lot of our work, that Peru is this fantastic country of contrast, the different landscapes, ecosystems, experiences that we've had on field work. And so we had quite a few different pieces that were relating to this, and also just trying to illustrate the kind of variety of landscapes and situations in Peru through that kind of part of the book.
Yeah, I think I agree with what kind of Diane said initially about that idea of like celebration, but also of loss. And I think as someone who works on glaciers, and I'm obviously very aware of that loss, and actually going through this process of writing about that creatively for me really brought that through even more strongly than just when I think about it as a scientific output. When you actually start to think about the impact for the people, for culture, for not just for natural resources, but actually just the way of life and how people associate with the mountains in regions like this. I think this creative process really helped bring that through for me. Rosa Maria, did you want to add anything there?
Yeah, I'm agree with all of you. But I also think the main message of the book, because it is also written in English, it's like a way of raise awareness of the things that are currently happening here in our ecosystems, and especially with climate change and all the problems that we have here related to glacier retreat and how people, and in some regions, indigenous people who depend on the services that these mountains provide, are trying to deal with this kind of problems. So it's also a good way, a beautiful way to raise awareness of these problems.
Yeah, absolutely. So I can see there's another question in the chat, which I'll ask first, and then I'll come to a question that's in the Q&A after. So we have a question that asks, what is the solution if the glacier retreat leaves a lack of water for the local people? That's a really good question. I think, so from my perspective, on our sort of research project thinking about this, I don't have a definitive answer to that. So at the moment, we're in a situation where the glaciers in Peru are retreating enough that no matter how much they melt now, the amount of water they produce will never be as much as it used to be. The glaciers aren't big enough to produce that same amount of water. So at the moment, they're super important during drier periods of the year when rainfall is scarce. So ideas around how you can adapt to that locally are important. So things like regenerating wetlands that can be used like a sponge to soak up the water that would otherwise run through the catchment really quickly if it falls as rain rather than as snow and being trapped in a glacier. So wetlands can help to slow down that hydrological process and release water more steadily, and it also cleans the water as well. So it's doubly helpful from that perspective. Of course, there are larger potential solutions too, if we think about what we can do globally to think about climate impacts. You know, it's probably too late to slow the retreat of glaciers in Peru, unfortunately, but in other parts of the world, like the Himalayas and the Hindu Kush, the glaciers there are a little bit behind in terms of response to climate, and we might still have time to make a difference to some of those regions and slow the retreat of glaciers in other parts of the world. So it's a complex answer, I'm afraid, to that question. I don't know if anyone else wants to add anything to that.
I was just going to say that was brilliant, Caroline. You covered a lot there, and I was going to also just emphasize that side of trying to help with adaptation, which were the first things that Caroline mentioned. So adapting to a changing situation, but then also the mitigation side of really trying to reduce greenhouse gas emissions as the main contributor towards climate change. And so we kind of really hope that this book just opens out that kind of message about the impacts of climate change on glaciers to people that may be less familiar. So yeah, that's one of the things that kind of links the two questions together.
Definitely.
And just brief, maybe adding to what you already said, it's important also to understand that, of course, we have like a natural pressure here, like physical processes that are pressure on ecosystems, but we also there are also social processes that create this water scarcity. So it's like a combination, a mixture of hydrological issues with social issues that we also have here. So it's definitely a complicated question, and the answer is not easy to think.
Yeah, just thinking about how to use the water that is available as it becomes less available, I guess, as there's less of it. So Kirsten in the Q&A has asked, I'd love to hear more about your experiences of working across the divide. Scientists, what was it like to play with words and the emotional sides of the human-glacier relationship? Writers, what was it like to work with scientific texts? What insights did you all gain from working together? I think that is a really good question. Does anyone else want to go first on that?
I can start if you want. Yeah, so this definitely from a scientist's perspective, it was really intimidating at first, this idea of having to play with words and to not have time to really think about what you're writing and to write perfectly. Dan was fantastic at encouraging us to just write without scribbling out, without changing anything, which is really difficult because when Caroline and I had the first sessions, we were not used to working like that. And so it definitely felt intimidating going to the very first workshop, but it was also really eye-opening and an amazing experience to learn how to be more playful and to almost open another door that we didn't know was there in terms of exploring these ideas and these thoughts and these feelings, and how to put that on paper and realizing that it could be communicated. So it was just, it was an amazing experience, but I think it really takes the right people, I guess. You know, you have to be open and willing to try and to just find the right combination that works. And I think we were really lucky that we did find a very good group that worked and found ways to work together well. And I think that's why we were able to produce what we produced.
Rosa Maria, how was it for you?
Oh, it was an enriching experience because writing is one of the things I do which I feel more comfortable and more confident with. It's like a way to express all the ideas that I have in my mind. That are many ideas. So writing is like it's a good experience for me. But creative writing, I mean that kind of writing that, or where you try to put your feelings also in works. It's sometimes it's difficult, and I'm just to write like facts and things like that, not my emotions, not the feelings or emotions I have, for example, with my land, with the place I was born, and these kind of things. So it was an enriching experience, definitely.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I learned a great deal. But I really love the way that Caroline and Sally came at things, and Claudia, Rosa Maria, Kelly, and Evelyn, the kinds of things that they brought. And I think what was brilliant was that they brought things they cared about, and yet they had like kind of data, and so it's very interesting to meet people who kind of care about and are excited about stuff that could seem very dry, but so I think it's the meeting point. Ursula asked, what is the heart message? The heart message is, it's like people care, that we care about these things. And I hope that, I think Paul's asked, how are we going to continue? I mean, at the moment, the plan is to put the booklet out there, and just let people read it. But we did initially want to run workshops that the booklet inspired, so that people could actually participate in doing their own writing around glaciers. So maybe we'll still do that one day. That's not impossible. Yeah, I do have a thing about heights, but I do think I'd quite like to go there one day. I've been inspired.
Yeah, I kind of like Sally and Rosa Maria, I found it a bit difficult to be less controlled with my writing. And one of the things that Diane asked us, particularly in the first couple of sessions, she would ask us to send our raw writing without us having like scrubbed anything out or changed anything or made any edits after the session. And I found it really difficult to let go of that and send Diane like whatever I just happened to have put on the page. I found that quite tricky. But I think as the sessions went on, that became easier. So it was a really nice process to be a little bit less controlled in my writing. And I think that's actually a good approach scientifically as well. It can sometimes be difficult to fill a page when it's empty in front of you. So actually just taking a more laid back approach to that in the first place can make writing in general easier, whether that's creative or scientific writing. And as Diane said, hoping to pass on this book because it's free for anyone to read. And one of the ways we're going to do that as well in terms of young people is to get some hard copies printed shortly and sort of send them out to local schools and just try and just get it out there for people to read. So please do share. I saw Jacob's message about how he was in Chamonix recently and seeing the Mer de Glace retreating is emotional. It is, like seeing things like, especially if you visited multiple times, it can be quite a shock to see these landscapes changing in the space of a human lifespan. So mountain glaciers really are at the forefront of climate change, really. Got another couple. So we have one in the chat question from Leni, who asks, is there anything you learned that you think could be an inspiration for other scientists, researchers, or artist collaborations?
I think a basic thing actually is kind of compatibility thing, that it's important if you're going to work with anyone actually, but that Sally and I really hit it off, and then Caroline, we all hit it off with each other, and I think that's important because that's how you open the doors and you trust each other, and you've got to be prepared to go into a space where you're a bit vulnerable, like Sally was scared, and so to have as the basis of the collaboration something about a simpatico and trusting that, and then I think trust, And then we each brought what we cared about. And I suppose that those as basics for a collaboration are important. And it's almost like the rest follows from there. You just bring it and you all offer your skills and then you go with it. And also we listened a lot to each other. I think good listening and picking up from each other, and that basic thing in improvisation of saying yes. You know, someone will suggest something, you immediately go yes, and then you go, and now how do we do it? You know, so it's listening and saying yes. And I think these are all things that are true. Well, any collaborations, aren't they? So it's the people you're working with in essence that and how compatible you are. I think that makes a big difference.
Yeah, and we definitely had like maybe a shared kind of idea as well. You know, we really enjoyed what we were doing, but we all got excited about the idea of doing more of it or making it into something. And I think that's also part of the process. But yeah, we only got there through, I think, being on the same wavelength, having an opportunity to explore it. And like Diane said, I think, yeah, listening was quite a big part of it, and feeling like it was a safe space to work in as well was really important.
I think also the other thing which is interesting is that everyone's contributed stuff that isn't their kind of area of expertise. You know, that I think the visual side of the book looks really important, and the photos that everyone's contributed, you know, they're just taking them, most of them on their phones. And Caroline's wonderful watercolors, which is not something she does for her work, you know. And so we've kind of drawn on the things people do outside of their kind of professional expertise, but yet that they're kind of life activities, you know, and that's, you bring the whole person. I think it's really important to bring the whole person, not just, you know, not just the professional person. I think that adds a real quality to it.
Yeah, I think this sort of blurred the boundary between what was work and what was almost like a hobby, you know, like actually bringing like interests in and just, you know, enjoying it. And one of the sad things sometimes about doing research is that it's quite restrictive, and you're working to set deadlines, and, you know, there are certain reports that you have to write at different times of year and these kind of things. And this collaboration, because of the way it worked out, ended up, as we said, being very organic. So we kind of could just let it evolve in the way we wanted it to. So it wasn't as restrictive as sometimes collaborations can be. And at first that was a bit of a problem because we didn't know how we were going to fund things. But as it worked out, it was really, it sort of complemented an existing project anyway. And because of COVID, basically we had some funding left to play with because we couldn't travel to Peru ourselves, and that allowed us to support this more. I'm going to mute myself.
Dogs good. So would you consider, I'm just reading another one, would you consider doing workshops in local schools as big focus on combining literacy, geography, science at the moment, and the secondary teacher to collaborate? Yeah, we probably would. I don't know. I'd be happy to talk about that. So I don't know about Sally or Caroline's. Obviously, Dog might want to be involved, but...
Yeah, so I think as Caroline, or I think it was mentioned earlier, this was one of our kind of main things at the start, was to try to win money to fund a project like this, which would allow us to go into schools and do workshops. So that was actually our original plan, but we were actually unsuccessful with our funding applications, which is a bit of a shame. But it was kind of a double-edged sword, because it allowed us to explore this thing that happened quite naturally, which ended up being Glacier Gifts, which didn't have to then fit into any funding timescale that we were originally looking at. But yeah, I think it's definitely something we can try to get more involved in, because outreach activities, and it would be really important to be able to get involved with schools.
Yeah, definitely. I saw that Rupert wrote something in the Q&A as well, asking, to the scientists, has your involvement in this project impacted on your writing style for academic writing? Do you know, I would love to say yes, but I don't know yet, Rufus, because I haven't had the time to do any recently. But been so busy. But I'd love to see academic writing loosen up a little bit. Obviously, there's things we have to write. You have to present the results in a certain way. You have to be detailed enough about that. You have to present it in a professional manner. But I think sometimes papers can be a bit impenetrable as well. And actually, while there's not as much space for putting personal opinion in an academic piece of writing, but I think there are ways to make it more engaging and to approach it like just being less controlled when you start writing. So yeah, I guess for me, the next time I do work on that, I'm going to take that approach that Diane kind of taught us, to maybe not correct things all the time, and just see where I get to with that. That's a good question. And I think I'll probably, getting on towards 8 o'clock, but I can see there is a comment from Kirsten that says she's currently doing a PhD project on introducing creative writing into physical geography in Scottish secondary schools. I was thinking Glacier Gifts would be an excellent resource for school workshops. And yeah, absolutely, that would be amazing. At the end of the booklet, we've included some of the sort of methods, I guess, for want of a better word, that we used to try and pull out some of our pieces. So that could actually be used, couldn't it, to guide others, your own creative writing, or with other groups. So I think, yeah, that would be really interesting if you did that.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. And you're welcome to contact me if you want to, get any guidance or, input. If you, at the end of the booklet, there's a link to my website, so you can contact me through that. So please feel free to do so.
And I was just going to say, you could even use just some of the imagery in the book to maybe try some of the creative writing kind of processes, and then you could actually read some of the creative pieces afterwards or something, as a quick idea of how it could work. But Diane has a lot of experience with running these in schools, so she could definitely help more.
Right. Fab. So, oh gosh. I think the dog wants her dinner. But yeah, unless anyone wants to add anything else, I guess I will say thank you for coming. And it was really nice to be able to read some of these pieces, and I hope you enjoy the others when you have a look at the book. I can just pop on the last slide. There's a QR code there if you didn't get Sally's code, a link already, if you want to find the book. And we'll pop a recording from this on our website as well afterwards, in case others want to watch this later, if you want to pass it on. So thank you very much for everyone for joining, and thanks for your really interesting questions as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. And pass it on, pass the book on to everyone you know.
Bye.
Take care.